Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. Today we're going to be talking about Lahaina some more. And what we're looking at here is an aerial view of the Banyan tree, which is a type of fig tree. And it was kind of in a central location in the city. And if you didn't watch my last video about Lahaina, there's only a few things that survived this fire. There are a handful of structures that survived, but among those was the two LDS chapels, and then a lighthouse, and then you had this tree, this like really historic tree that survived. It got burnt, but it's still alive. It's not dead. And we went through a lot of the potential symbolism in that and the meaning of what's happened, because to me, it does seem like Heavenly Father is speaking to us and letting us know that we are in that time where the second coming is soon going to become a reality. And it was depicted in a very vivid way through this event. But anyway, it turns out that there's a connection, I believe, between the banyan tree and President David O. McKay. Because I kept coming across all these stories, and they would always make mention of the fact that the tree is 150 years old. And as I was preparing for a completely different video, I was just like, okay, I'm going to look that up. Was there something that happened in church history 150 years ago that's significant that might match up with this tree? And yes, there is something very significant that happened in that year that it was planted. So we are going to look at that. Before we do, a couple other things. Here's the update on the Flood the Earth Challenge, where we're sharing the Book of Mormon. 6,259 copies of the Book of Mormon have been shared so far. We've had 2 new people join the challenge. If you haven't already, please do so. Either hand out physical copies of the Book of Mormon or just use the Gospel Library app. There's a share button there where you can send a link to the Book of Mormon app to your friends. So make sure to do that. But good job, everybody. Make sure to include #flood in the comments, or if you send me an email, put that in the subject line so it's easy for me to find it. And then please keep your message short when you're reporting these numbers. Okay, so before we get into Lahaina, the banyan tree, David O. McKay, and other things, I want to give you a quick update on a new entry that I put on my capital cities disasters spreadsheet. So I had spoken to Mindy. My last video, she sent me all these different stories of disasters that have taken place in these capital cities. And she pointed out that huge eruption at the beginning of 2022 off the coast of Tonga, that it affected the capital city of Tonga, Nuku'alofa. And I thought that was interesting, so I decided to put it on the spreadsheet here. So it's actually my first entry so far, all the way back January 15th of 2022. As I was thinking about Tonga and Hawaii, these are 2 Polynesian countries. And I don't know if you ever watched it. I did a video a while ago about Polynesians because they are a special people. I think a lot of times we focus on the Native Americans in North America, well, North and South America. We think about the indigenous peoples here as being the people of the Book of Mormon. But there's a surprising number of statements that talk about the Polynesian Islands and how they're basically the descendants of Hagoth in the Book of Mormon, who was a Nephite that took a bunch of people and they sailed away and they were never heard from again. So I have a few of those quotes, and I think we would probably do well to read these first, because this kind of like is important context, I think, as we're thinking about Tonga and Hawaii. So I picked out, I'm not going to read all the quotes that I have, but suffice to say that they're talking about all Polynesians, okay? But I picked out the ones that specifically mention Hawaii for the purposes of this video. The first quote is from George Reynolds. He was in the First Council of the 70. This is found in the Journal of Discourses, volume 26, pages 157 to 158. He says, "We've been interested in hearing the report of Brother Edward Partridge, who has just returned from a mission to the Sandwich Islands, where the work of the Lord has been received for many years in a very gratifying manner by the remnant of the house of Israel who dwell thereon. It is also noticeable that the Maori, a people of a kindred race to the Hawaiian, who inhabit the island of New Zealand, many hundred miles to the southward in the Pacific Ocean, are also receiving the glad tidings of the gospel of Christ with joy, and that hundreds are being added to the church at the present time. It has long been the belief of the Latter-day Saints that these races are offshoots of the great people who once flourished upon this continent, who were brought out of the land of Jerusalem under Lehi, Mulek, and others, and who have inhabited this land from about 600 years before Christ. That people whose remnants are now found scattered far and wide over the North and South American continents. There appears to be a great similarity in the habits, customs, manners, and language of the natives of those two groups of islands, which similarity in many respects extends to some of the races that inhabit this continent. And for these and other reasons, we believe that in these islanders flow the blood of Israel to a great extent. And where it does, those who are thus blessed by being the children of the fathers to whom the promises were made, as races receive the truths of the gospel much more readily and apparently, notwithstanding their many weaknesses, cleave unto them much more devotedly than do many of those who embrace its saving principles among the Gentile nations." So that is very interesting. And then I wanted to include this. He's not talking about Hawaii, but this is from David O. McKay, who we're going to be talking about in just a little bit. So this is from his dedicatory prayer of the New Zealand temple. There's a part of it where he says, "We express gratitude that to these fertile islands thou didst guide descendants of Father Lehi and hast enabled them to prosper." So that's in the dedicatory prayer, the New Zealand temple. Okay, which I think, I got to check right. Okay, LDS temple map, because I'm pretty sure I have to search it a different way. Map of LDS temples. When I search it this way, the map that I'm looking for pulls up. Yeah, I knew that there were plans for more temples. So it's the Hamilton temple that was actually among the first in the church, the 11th dedicated temple. The 11th. And then we have one in Auckland where it looks like they're working on it. So blue is under construction. So in Auckland, this is under construction. And then the one in Wellington has simply been announced. So that's where we're at with New Zealand. Sorry, I just had to check. Okay. Now, this is a quote from Elder Matthew Cowley of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles speaking to the Hawaiians. Quote, "Brothers and sisters, you are God's children. You are Israel. You have in your veins the blood of Nephi." All right, speaking to the Hawaiians. And then here's the last one. This is from Spencer W. Kimball. Oh, dang it, I didn't put what office he held at the time that he said this, but let's see, 1977. I don't know. But we know that he was president of the church, ultimately. So he said, "I thought to read to you a sacred scripture which pertains especially to you, the islanders of the Pacific. It is in the 63rd chapter of Alma." He then read the account of Hagoth. "And so it seems to me rather clear that your ancestors moved northward and crossed a part of the South Pacific. You did not bring your records with you, but you brought much food and provisions, and so we have a great congregation of people in the South Seas who came from the Nephites, and who came from the land southward and went to the land northward, which could have been Hawaii. And then the further settlement could have been a move southward again to all these islands and even to New Zealand. The Lord knows what he is doing when he sends his people from one place to another. That was the scattering of Israel. Some of them remained in America and went from Alaska to the southern point, and others of you came this direction. Okay, and then there's other quotes here that I haven't read, but I did in a previous video. And I'm sure that there's more out there. If you have any more, feel free to send them my way. I may already have it on here, but just send it anyway if you have it, and I'll check and see. And if I don't have it, then I'll add it. Okay, so with that in mind, as we think about Tonga, where there was the volcano, which also caused a tsunami and an earthquake, you have this happen to the most LDS nation in the world, percentage-wise. I showed that in the previous video. It's like 63% of the country are members of the church, which is pretty amazing. Now let's go to Hawaii and Lahaina. This is the most up-to-date figure that I've seen. This is on NBC News's like live blog for this event. And as of right now, unfortunately, and as predicted, the death toll has gone up. It says officials have confirmed 80 deaths in the wildfires. So the last video I did, it was at 55. Now it's at 80. So this jumped up significantly. How does that compare to Paradise, California? Again, in that disaster, it was 85 people. So now Lahaina is only 5 behind. And based on what we read last time, how they've only checked essentially the outside of buildings. They haven't checked the inside yet. It's probably going to go up even higher. Of course, some of this this update here, maybe that was from people that were found inside their homes, but I don't know. Maui County may cost Maui County may cost an estimated $5.52 billion to rebuild after the Lahaina fire, according to figures released Saturday by the Pacific Disaster Center and Federal Emergency Management Agency. A total of 2,200 buildings and other structures have been damaged or destroyed as of Monday, while 2,170 acres have been burned. This acreage is not very big, so it just goes to show you that it doesn't have to be a big fire to be deadly or dangerous. Because, for example, if we go to my disasters, wildfires tab, right now in Hawaii or in Canada, last I checked, which was on the 3rd of August, there were 30 million acres in Canada that have burned down. But as far as I know, there hasn't been as much death, as far as I know, right? New Mexico had its largest wildfire in state history last year at 341,000. So way, 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 way bigger than what happened in Lahaina. But as far as I know, there's no death toll with that. There were buildings destroyed, and even in that case, not as much as Lahaina. So yeah, there's that to think about. All right, 6 fires are burning in Maui and the Big Island, but officials said the Lahaina fire is now 85% contained. Many of the town's historic landmarks are lost. Okay, so let's get into this. Let me make sure, okay, what are we looking at here? Maui residents may not have been warned as wildfires approached because no alarm sounded. Yeah, this was another thing I wanted to talk about before we start talking about the banyan tree and David O. McKay. So look what it says here. The wildfires had moved from brush to inhabited areas so quickly that it was impossible to get word to the emergency management agencies responsible for alerts. So, and of course, this is according to, there's always that doubt that you have with any given story that, maybe not all the truth is coming out. Who knows? That's not my purposes here. I realize that there are secret combinations. There's devious characters sometimes involved with different things like this. I understand that. But Anyway, according to the official story, it's because the fire was moving so fast there was no time to even activate the system, which I find a little odd, but okay, sure. Um, as the death toll rose to 67 on Friday, so that was yesterday at the time that I'm recording this, with many more deaths expected, survivors on Maui questioned why the alert system appeared to have failed. Look what it says here. Hawaii officials described the sirens as the largest integrated outdoor all-hazard public safety warning system in the world. The largest one, which acts as a first line of defense against natural and human-caused events. The system consists of 400 sirens spread throughout the island chain and is used to warn residents about everything from tsunamis and volcanic eruptions to terrorist threats. So if this story can be believed, and it was just simply the fact that it spread so fast, again, just like the other video, we can take a lesson from that. It's just like the second coming. There's not going to be time once it's happening. The time to prepare is right now. It's right now. I do realize also, kind of going back to the notion that sometimes, things aren't reported. Things go under the radar. Or kept hidden. I understand, and we've talked about on this channel that there is, warfare going on in this century that may not appear like the type of warfare that we're familiar with, especially from the 20th century, like World War I and World War II. We've talked about color revolutions. We've talked about the weather and how it seems that nation states, maybe the more powerful of them, can actually use that. And so you guys, I get it. I got a lot of comments on the last video about a particular type of weapon or warfare. I totally understand. I'm not going to elaborate on it here, but so yeah, so I get it. So it's very odd. The largest integrated outdoor all hazard public safety warning system in the world failed to warn the inhabitants of Lahaina of this quickly spreading fire. Very strange. Very strange indeed. Okay, so onto the banyan tree. So you can go to my Twitter or X or whatever, and I try and retweet all the relevant stories and videos and stuff like that. And this is what it looks like right now where the banyan tree is. This is all one tree, by the way. It's not multiple trees. It's all one tree. It's a type of tree that, spreads out like that, really, really big. And it turns out that it actually survived the fire. It's one of the few things in Lahaina that survived. Or, like I said, it seems that there was some burning of the tree, but it's still alive. It's not dead. So it did sustain some damage. But it's good news for everybody that understands the history of this tree, which we're going to go into, and its significance to Hawaii and just to the city. So first, we're going to look at a few Wikipedia articles. So first for Lahaina, Hawaii itself. All right. And these are some things that I learned from Mindy that I realized, and of course I'm going to go and verify it all, not because I don't trust her, but to just show you so there's no question. Okay, so before unification of the islands, the town, Lahaina, was conquered by Kamehameha the Great. Lahaina was the capital of the Kingdom of Hawaii. That's something I didn't know. So because it was a historic capital, I decided to add the Lahaina fires. Oops, wrong thing. The Lahaina fire up here. It's a historic capital, and I'm sure a lot of the locals realize that history. It used to be the capital of Hawaii, and now it's been destroyed. Okay. Lahaina was the capital of the Kingdom of Hawaii from 1820 to 1845. King Kamehameha III, son of Kamehameha I, preferred the town to bustling Honolulu. Later on, the Banyan Court Park features an exceptionally large banyan tree planted on the site of Kamehameha the Great's first palace by William Owen Smith on April 24th, 1873, hence the 150 years ago, to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the arrival of Christian missionaries. So this is where things start to get a little bit weird. It begins to get weird. That this banyan tree it commemorates missionaries, not necessarily missionaries from our church, but Christian missionaries. Okay, the first to the Hawaiian Islands. It's my understanding, if I'm reading this correctly, or I think it explains that in another thing. So this tree is associated and related to missionary work and learning about Jesus Christ. Okay? One of the few things that survived in this town that just completely burned down, one of the few things that survived was this tree that is associated with Christian missionary work. Not only that, but it's near the site. I verified this. I think this is written a little bit wrong. If this is correct, the Google Maps, you have the original, what's called the brick palace of that king. And so it has that site right here, okay, right by the public library. And as you can see, it doesn't look like the brick palace is still around. So I don't know if it was demolished or why it's not still standing. But not far away, you see this large tree right here. This is the banyan tree. And you have a structure next to it called the Old Lahaina Courthouse. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So, it would seem to me that even though there's nothing there, when you look at the satellite imagery, everything around here is burned. If there was a brick palace, it would have been destroyed. But regardless, just the fact that Lahaina is the historic capital of Hawaii for that time frame, I think is significant. It adds to the message and the symbolism of what has happened with this event. Okay. Let's do more. Okay, so again, remember, banyan trees are a type of fig tree. There's 150 species in the ficus genus that are considered fig trees. Yeah, here's a picture. So they've already updated the Wikipedia article. You can see the banyan tree right there. The courthouse is destroyed. Everything around here destroyed. Let's see, I think that's all I had. Look at that Hawaiian rainbow. All right. Had a few more things. This is for Iolani Palace. So the Iolani Palace is in Honolulu. And then it talks about the brick palace here. Kamehameha I, or the first, formed his official government in Lahaina, Maui, in 1802, where he built the kingdom's first royal residence. Citation needed, but I'm assuming that's probably correct. Called the Brick Palace. Lahaina remained the seat of government under the first three Kamehameha monarchs until 1845, when Kamehameha III moved the royal court. Lahaina had been the seat of government where the royal courts of many chiefs of Maui had been located, including Kahekili II until 1794. In 1845, Kamehameha III moved the royal court and capital to Honolulu. And then here it is. Okay. That's all for that article. Like I was saying before, this is not the palace, but this is the historic courthouse. And as you can see, it's destroyed. You have the banyan tree behind it. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I had something from this article. Fires have reportedly damaged the old banyan tree. In addition, the Baldwin Home Museum in Lahaina, which is the oldest house in Maui, Waiола Church, and numerous other historic structures have been damaged or destroyed in the wildfires. So I thought that was interesting that, the oldest house on Maui. So it's a lot of historic things that have been destroyed, except for these symbols of the church, symbols of Christ, symbols of Israel, because we know that fig trees are one symbol of the house of Israel, right? Here's another image of it. The courthouse destroyed, banyan tree behind, everything around it looks like a nuclear bomb went off. Before, after. So here you can kind of see. So if you can see my mouse right here, let me make this a little bit larger, like that. That's the best I can do. Again, here's the banyan tree right here. Here's the courthouse. And then up here, according to Google Maps, if that's right, is the site of the brick palace. So you look at that. That's the before. And then look at the after. And yeah, you see how there's like green trees right there, but then you come down here and there's nothing. And in fact, there's what looks like the remains of trees, and there's a bunch of ash from the fires and stuff like that. So if that was still standing, surely it would have been burnt down along with everything else around here. This is what it used to look like. Just a nice building. Is this like the same area? Yeah, it's like probably roughly the same area right there. Okay. That's it from there. Okay, the Lahaina Banyan Court Park. So I guess that's kind of like that plaza or that city block that the banyan tree is on. Lahaina Banyan Court Park is a public park located on the corner of Front Street and Canal Street in the town of Lahaina, Hawaii, which was the capital of the Kingdom of Hawaii from 1820 to 1845. The 1.94 acres park, also known as Lahaina Courthouse Square, and commonly called Banyan Tree Park, contains multiple heritage sites on the Lahaina Historic Trail and a self-guided walking tour through the Lahaina Historic Districts. Okay. The courthouse, before it was burned, of course, the courthouse now houses a museum, art galleries, a visitor center, a community meeting room, and public restrooms. But now all of that is gone. So again, that's interesting, and I highlight that because if this is a symbol of the second coming, if it's a warning for those that have eyes to see and ears to hear, nothing's going to remain from the old world except for those that move on. We're not going to have any of the old laws anymore. There's going to be a new kingdom. There's going to be the political kingdom of Christ. We're not going to have the same system that we have now. Even though this hasn't been used as a courthouse for some time, it was restored and used as a museum. It was at one time a courthouse, and it, still has that name today, the old courthouse. That's a symbol of law in this world. And then becoming a museum, presumably with artifacts, because that's what you find in museums, art galleries, all this different stuff, all that got burnt too. Memories of the past, the old way of doing things. In fact, here, this is an artifact. This is the last flag of Hawaii to fly over the courthouse, and it's on permanent display. I'm sure that didn't survive, right? What kind of world are we going to find ourselves in once we're in the millennium? It's going to be drastically different. Everything's going to change. The way that we look at the past and the future, it's all going to change. We can't even comprehend it right now. But here's a little example in what happened to Lahaina if you compare Lahaina to the world. It's surreal. Okay, a few more things here. Don't worry, we're getting to David O. McKay. Okay, now this is an article specifically about the banyan tree itself. The banyan tree in Lahaina in Maui, Hawaii, United States, was planted on April 24th, 1873. 1873, 150 years ago. Now, that's the thing that caught my attention and made it so I made this video in the first place, the 150-year anniversary. For one thing, that kind of catches your eye, kind of piques your interest a little bit because that's a pretty even number, 150. It wasn't 149, it wasn't 151. It's one of those just even numbers that we work with all the time. $1.50, $150, whatever. So 1873, I did some looking, and it turns out that David O. McKay was born in 1873. He was born the same year that this was planted. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, the banyan tree started its life on this square in 1873. And David O. McKay literally started his life when he was born September 8th. And this is interesting because President Nelson was born on September 9th. So, in fact, come to think of it, and I was talking about this with Mindy, but now I'm looking at the actual date, now his birthday is less than a month away because today is the 12th, Saturday the 12th that I'm recording this. So President Nelson is about to turn 99 in less than a month. But going back to David O. McKay, he was born September 8th. It's very interesting. We're going to get to more about him and everything that he did and his connections to Hawaii, because not only were they do they share the same year in which they were born or planted, but David O. McKay has a special relationship with Hawaii, of all people. Of all people, he has a special relationship with Hawaii. We're going to explore that. But let's get back to the banyan tree. So it was planted on April 24th, 1873 in Lahaina to mark the 50th anniversary of the arrival of the first American Protestant mission. Okay. It's specifying Protestant, so I don't know if like Catholics had been there before. But even so, that would be special to us being members of this church because, a lot of times we're classified as Protestants. So it's really significant. Oh yeah, one more thing. I checked on the Hebrew calendar for the year 1873. So this is when it was planted on the 24th of April. So that was a week after Passover. So it didn't happen during Passover, but it's in that season. And then, of course, any date in September or October is in the season of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot, otherwise known as the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. So it's interesting that we have David O. McKay. We also have President Nelson that are born during this season. Okay. And so September 8th of that year is right here. So it didn't happen during one of the feast days. But again, it's interesting that both these things take place during... There's like the two main seasons for the holidays in Judaism. You have the spring holidays or holy days, primarily Passover, which includes the Passover meal, which is the Passover Seder, first fruits, which happens on the second day of Pesach, and then the entire thing is referred to as the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So it's kind of 3 in 1. Later, in early summer, late spring, you have the Feast of Weeks, also known as Pentecost, also known as Shavuot, also known as the Feast of the Harvest. So you have like the spring feasts or holidays, and then you have the fall ones, starting with Rosh Hashanah, which is the New Year. That's when they change the date. So Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. So interesting timing for the planting and for the birth of David O. McKay, or the banyan tree and David O. McKay. Okay. The banyan tree was located close to the port The banyan tree was located close to the port in the historical Lahaina town, which was the former capital of Hawaii. It was the oldest banyan tree in Hawaii. So giving it even more significance, the oldest banyan tree in Hawaii. The banyan tree was received as a gift by the Smith family of all names. Because if you're looking at this symbolically, and if you're looking at the banyan tree representing Israel, and you're thinking about the last dispensation, it's like you're bringing back covenant Israel, and it starts with Joseph Smith. So it's interesting. It's interesting. The banyan tree received as a gift by the Smith family in the 1870s was planted on April 24th, 1873, at Lahaina by William Owen Smith, the then sheriff of Lahaina. So again, someone in a law enforcement capacity. That, I guess that goes along with the courthouse. I suppose that's why he received it, because he was probably working out of the courthouse, or I don't know how things worked back then. The tree was planted to mark the 50th anniversary of the arrival of the first Protestant mission in Maui. The mission had been invited by Maui Queen Keopuolani, wife of late King Kamehameha. It is not only the largest in Hawaii, but also in the United States. Now, not the largest tree in the United States, because that would be one of the redwood trees in California, but it's the largest banyan tree. So it's the oldest and the largest banyan tree or fig tree that's of the species banyan tree in the United States. So it's a really prime, important tree, as is Israel. Out of all the families of the earth, it is, the most important family because it's an everlasting family. All other family relationships are going to dissolve after this life. It's only those that are sealed together as Israel that's going to move on as a family, once you're exalted. So it's just so weird that this thing happened. Again, a lighthouse, the banyan tree, which is a fig tree, and then the two, where'd it go? The two chapels. Oh, right here. This chapel, unharmed. And then there's another chapel up here. This chapel, unharmed. And speaking of chapels, I actually have an update from somebody. This is from Devin Southam. So he emailed me this 5 hours ago. Jared, my sister and her family were caught in this blaze. They spent 2 nights in the LDS chapel. They said that the church was mobilized within seconds of the blaze. Hundreds and hundreds have been helped by the church. People from Maui and the visitors who had found the church went there because it was the only safe building still standing, not touched by flames. Again, it's a place of physical safety, a place of well, maybe not so much safety, because this would have been like after the fires were done, I'm sure, but a place of refuge after this happened. The only place you can go for safety and refuge. People from Maui and visitors who had found the church went there because it was the only safe building still standing, not touched by flames. There are 2 church houses in Lahaina, both unscathed. They said all were amazed at the church being so prepared, and were amazed at the churches and its missionaries, of whom performed songs and performed aid. Some aid being burn care. I have a brother on Oahu who was a stake president. They were on Zoom with church headquarters and all stake presidents through Hawaii. Most of the day, within 24 hours, the church had provided planes of food, medical, etc., etc. Everyone there had been absolutely amazed at our faith, church's response. Even greater than our governments, Our government so far hasn't done anything as of yet, question mark. Red Cross is barely arriving today. I've been to Lahaina 2 times. Those banning trees are half a block from Ocean downtown. Apparently they're still alive but scorched. This fire will ruin Maui for a long, long time. Without tourism, it will shrink and die. Relies on tourism about 60%. Okay, sorry. It relies on tourism about 60% or greater in its income. Anyway, here's a bit of info to update you. God bless. My sister said they have witnessed many absolute blatant miracles. No doubts. Hey, if your sister doesn't mind sharing some of those, I would love to hear it if she'd like to send an email or something like that. Um, well, or maybe even, you know what? I don't do interviews really, except for like with Troy and Rabbi Gerfine. But if you guys know anybody there that experienced this, like not, well, if you have like pertinent information or you were actually in the affected area, um, I would love to maybe talk to you and do an interview. That would be interesting. Okay, so no doubts there will be many more deaths added to counts. The current count is only those found in streets. Many caught in their homes. The count hasn't even began yet. Pray for our Hawaiian ohana. God bless Devin. Thank you, Devin. Yeah, talk to your sister for me, and anybody else that might want to provide information that I can share with everybody else. Okay, so yeah, the two chapels. These are the two chapels. So it's, oh my gosh, it's it's still so hard for me to wrap my head around this. Oh, this was such a big event, so big and so important. I think as a sign, when you have things that are specific to our church, when you have things that are specific to Christianity, when you have things related to this being a capital city, and just in how unlikely it would be that Hawaii would have a wildfire that would destroy the town. If you were to tell me a natural disaster destroyed a town in Hawaii, my first guesses would be, oh, it was a hurricane or it was a volcano, maybe like a big eruption and lava destroyed, a town. Not a wildfire. There's so many strange things going on here. So many strange things. And I feel like the Lord's fingerprints are all over it. Okay. Despite it appearing as many trees, it is actually one tree with many limbs that have grown together. And doesn't that make you think of the church right now? I mean, first, if you step back, you think about uh, Israel being, different branches being broken off, like the Nephites, the 10 lost tribes, and other groups. So I first think about that, but you can even think about it nowadays. How the church, we have members in all these different nations. We're all citizens of different nations, but we're all together part of one tree. We're all together part of this one tree. Just all these layers of symbolism. It never ends. Okay, so now let's go to the David O. McKay layer after all the rest of this. After talking about it being a fig tree representing Israel, after it representing the first Protestant missionaries to Hawaii, after it representing, the capital of Hawaii, having the courthouse right there, the laws of Hawaii, and not only this, but how so many times in the scriptures there's the lesson of things that are man-made and things that are God-made. This tree is not man-made, and it survived. Just like the laws of God are not man-made. Okay, it's not artificial. It survived, whereas all these other man-made structures failed, except for the two chapels, and then there are a handful of other buildings that survived. But it's amazing that the two chapels were among that very small group of buildings that survived. Okay, David O. McKay, born September 8th, 1873. He was the 9th president of the church. Okay, in 1920, the first presidency assigned McKay to make a worldwide tour of the missions of the LDS Church with Hugh J. Cannon, who recorded the journey of some 61,646 miles. They opened a new mission to China, so we've already had missions in China. Traveled to Hawaii, where McKay had a vision promising to build a school near the temple. You know what? Now that I'm reading this again, I don't know if this means he had a vision or if he just envisioned. I'm sure, no doubt, there was inspiration. But what I want to know is if he had an actual vision. If you know of an actual vision, please send it to me, and I'll probably add that in a future video. So, where McKay had a vision promising to build a school near the temple, which we all know became BYU Hawaii, and visited Samoa, Tonga, New Zealand, and Palestine, or Israel. In Palestine, they met Wilford Booth and visited Armenian Latter-day Saints. McKay returned to Utah on Christmas Eve, 1921. Oh, he was home just in time for the holiday for Christmas. Oh, that must have been so great. I wish I could have been there. I would have been so happy to be home for Christmas after a long journey like that. Okay, so you can see his connection to Hawaii, but there's more. Let's go to BYU Hawaii's Wikipedia article. Go to the parts that I highlighted. 2 years after the temple was dedicated. Let's go back here, because again, this was another one of the earliest temples in the church. Isn't it interesting? Oh, let's go to LDS temple chronological order. Let's go to this. Leye. Sorry, someone had told me how to pronounce this, but let's see, pronunciate. Oh, Lay? Is that
Lay? Lay.
Lay. Wiktionary, the free dictionary. Looks like it's just lay. All right, whatever. I'm gonna go with lay for now. Feel free to correct me. It's fine. Anyway, the Lay temple was the 5th. That's even before the New Zealand temple. So among the first temples in the church are these Nephite temples in New Zealand and Lay, Hawaii. Isn't that interesting? It's so interesting. Okay, so back to BYU Hawaii. Okay. 2 years after the temple was dedicated, then LDS Church apostle David O. McKay stated the church would build a school in the area in the future. In 1951, McKay, as church president, began preliminary plans on the school, and in 1955, ground was broken for the new institution. Classes began at BYU Hawaii in September 1955 as the Church College of Hawaii to accommodate the burgeoning LDS population in the territory of Hawaii. This was largely a result of McKay's views on both education and strengthening the church outside of its longtime Intermountain West U.S. base. Now, this is interesting. Think about now the banyan tree representing not so much David O.K., the man, but David O. McKay and what he accomplished during his time as a general authority, an apostle, and prophet. Okay, LDS elders established the Polynesian Cultural Center. That's different from BYU Hawaii. In November 1963 as a means of preserving the Pacific cultures. Okay. let's go back to the banyan tree. The banyan tree has been preserved mostly. Maybe some of the branches or the branches that look like their own trees, maybe some of them were destroyed, but this has been preserved. Just like was the mission of David O. McKay to preserve Polynesian culture. You see that? You can't make this up. Was there anything else here? No. Let's look at the Polynesian Cultural Center. Okay. Let me know if you've been here before. Okay. In early 1962, LDS Church President David O. McKay authorized construction of the nonprofit center as a way to provide employment and scholarships for students at BYU Hawaii and to preserve the cultures of Polynesia. It has its roots, interesting word to use in this article, talking about the banyan tree. It has its roots in 1940s and 1950s hukalau and luau beach gatherings to earn money to rebuild a local chapel belonging to the LDS Church, which had been destroyed in a fire. Can you believe that? This project had its roots in gatherings uh, that were organized to earn money to rebuild a church that had been destroyed by fire. And now here we are, even closer to the second coming, and you have these two churches that were preserved from a fire. It's a weird thing. The Tahiti Village show. I've like seen this before somewhere on YouTube or something. And I think it has, oh yeah, each of the major Polynesian cultures has its own section centered on a traditional village. Hourly performances and cultural learning experiences take place in these villages. Villages include Hawaii, Samoa, Aotearoa, or New Zealand, Fiji, Tahiti, and Tonga. It's pretty cool. Man, this is like making me want to go to Hawaii. I've never had like much of a desire just because I don't know why. Just other places have interested me, but I'm kind of wanting to go there now. Okay. I wanted to read a little bit more. Okay, this is from Church News through produced, I guess, by Deseret News. Okay, standing in a sugarcane field in Lae, Hawaii, on February 12th, 1955, President David O. McKay founded Church College of Hawaii. On that day, he spoke of a vision he saw 34 years earlier when he witnessed a group of international school children participating in a flag ceremony at the church school in Lae. Okay, so it's like talking about that vision, and it's describing it as a vision again. President McKay recounted that he had seen in those children the ability of the gospel of Jesus Christ to unite all people. This is the groundbreaking ceremony, David O. McKay. Then he spoke of the influence of the new school, which would later become Brigham Young University, Hawaii. Quote, "From this school, I'll tell you, will go men and women whose influence will be felt for good toward the establishment of peace internationally," he said. That's interesting. Later, during the dedicatory prayer, he gave further insight into the great potential of the place where he stood. Quote, "We dedicate our actions in this service unto thee and unto thy glory, into the salvation of the children of men, that this college and the temple in the town of Lae may become a missionary factor, influencing not thousands, not tens of thousands, but millions of people who will come seeking to know what this town and its significance are." This is pretty crazy. Today, the prophetic vision is a reality. Millions have visited the Polynesian Cultural Center, the Lae Hawaii Temple Grounds, and of course, the campus of BYU Hawaii. Further, more than 2,500 students representing more than 70 countries attend BYU Hawaii each year. When they leave, said BYU Hawaii President Stephen C. Wheelwright, they are prepared to be leaders in their homelands. Many of those international students who cannot otherwise afford an education came to the university on a unique financial aid program, I Work, which offers a 50% grant and 50% forgivable loan. Okay, President Wheelwright said he has seen through the university experience students become individuals who can literally change their communities. For example, recently the president of the first stake in Mongolia, President Odgrel Ochirjav, visited the BYU Hawaii campus. Quote, he and his wife are both products of the institution, said President Wheelwright. So that's really cool. And if you have any stories about the success of BYU Hawaii or just special bits of information that you know, please let me know. You might remember recently, let's see, Henry B. Eyring, 2022 BYU Hawaii Devotional. I would highly recommend that you watch this devotional with President Eyring. He said some pretty interesting things there. He talked about that fact, reinforcing the idea that BYU Hawaii is a place for people to either sometimes stay, like to come and stay in Hawaii or in the United States, or sometimes go back, just depending on what the Lord prompts you to do. Like that was like the spiritual message is the Lord has something for you to do. It may be for you to go back. It may be for you to stay here. But he was like telling people to like really counsel with the Lord in what they should do with their lives. But anyway, on my quotes, on my second coming timeline, or what's it called? Okay, quotes. Yeah, quotes, second coming. In fact, the most recent quote that I have is from that devotional. And he said some pretty interesting things. This is probably going to be the next video that I do, and I'll have it scheduled for Monday morning. All right, but there's more. We're not even done yet. There's more. Okay, so somehow or another, I came across this on Twitter. This is from Greg with the Quick Show. I'm sure that you know him. He has this YouTube channel called Quick Show. And he put, canceling David O. McKay at BYU Hawaii. What is the motivation to remove the David O. McKay mural? I was like, what? Are you serious? And this is just from a few months ago, 4 months ago, almost to the day, because today's the 12th. This was April 13th that he just recently did this post, and then he did that video. I'll put the link for his channel. In fact, can I find the video? Give me just 1 second. Oh, here it is right here. Canceling David O. McKay at BYU Hawaii. So I'll put the link for this in the description. I'm not going to cover that, but I do want to read just a little bit what he has on his website. Canceling David O. McKay at BYU Hawaii. He says, the famous David O. McKay mural is apparently on the chopping block. And here it is right here. But suspect reasons for its destruction are plenty. Many on and off campus believe the move is political. This is an intriguing and meaningful story. No room has been allowed for donors who want to preserve the mural, which could be removed as soon as June. Well, June is coming past. The mural is an iconic tie to the legacy and heritage of the Polynesian members of the church. Imagine losing the This is the Place monument, referring to the monument in Utah. Okay, so there's this mural there. I wanted to look into this a little bit. I'll let Greg cover the implications of why this may actually be happening. I did find a few things, but I'm not going to cover this extensively. I'll leave that to Greg. So this is from Honolulu Civil Beat. BYU is considering taking down the iconic mural on its Northern Shore campus. Members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are simmering at the prospect that a historic mosaic on the campus of BYU, Hawaii, could be damaged during a redevelopment project. Plans include the demolition of the David O. McKay Center, which has significant structural problems. President John Coway III said on the university's website in March. Above the entrance to the building is a mosaic depicting McKay, the former LDS president, surrounded by Hawaiian, Japanese, Portuguese, Chinese, Filipino, and mainlander children saluting the American flag at the site of the Lay Elementary School. And here's an image of it. And yeah, that's kind of pretty amazing. And it has like the temple in the background. That is a really cool thing. They better find a way to preserve that. He returned in 1958. Speaking of David O. McKay, obviously. He returned in 1958 to dedicate the complex and the mosaic, which was shipped from Italy in pieces and installed in 10 days, church history says. So, is it not possible to take it apart the same way? I'm sure it's probably more complicated than that. Surely there's a way that it can be preserved. Okay, the university said it will preserve, quote, significant portions of the mosaic, end quote. But locals contend their history is at risk if the entire mosaic is not kept intact. Verla Moore, Lay Community Association president, said she doesn't oppose campus redevelopment, but the community wants clarification about the artwork's future. Some descendants of children in the scene still reside in Lay, creating a sense of ownership over the mosaic's future, Moore said. Quote, this community helped build this college, end quote, she said. Faith Acco said the mosaic depicts a watershed moment in the town and the university's history. She grew up in Lay and splits her time between the community and California. Acco says, for us, it depicts how it all began. Yeah. I did find this put out by BYU Hawaii under construction updates, upcoming projects, McKay Complex. So I guess, this is right here. You can see the mosaic right here. That's a really nice looking complex. They say a couple things. Why are only portions of the mosaic being preserved instead of the entire artwork? The foyer has been condemned and out of use for nearly 3 years. That's probably in reference to the structural integrity and how there's issues with the structure itself, so you can't use the foyer. The foyer has been condemned and out of use for nearly 3 years. The opportunity costs of designing the entire McKay complex replacement around the mosaic are too significant to justify that approach. Experts have strongly advised against relocating the mosaic as a whole to the front of campus due to the considerable risk it poses to the preservation of the mosaic itself. Considering these limitations, experts have proposed that significant portions of the mosaic can be preserved with higher confidence, ensuring their longevity and ability to convey the intended story indefinitely. This option was discussed with the Board of Trustees, and they agreed that a welcome center that places Christ as the most prominent feature, with the mosaic portions and other displays complementing, that was the appropriate path forward. So that makes sense. That makes sense, making Christ the central thing. Again, I'm no engineer or anything. I just feel there, with something this simple, there has got to be. Let's find the picture again. Surely there's some kind of way to do this. There has to be. Who the heck knows? I'm not in construction. I'm not an engineer. Okay, is this about politics? Okay, so BYU Hawaii addresses that question, and according to them, which doesn't mean that there's nothing going on, and this is not a rebuttal to Greg. I don't have a position on this, and I think that he probably I'm sure he's onto something there. Um, I don't usually delve too much into political things and stuff like that, but that's more his arena. Okay, is this about politics? The mission of BYU Hawaii is to prepare students of Oceania and the Asian Rim to be lifelong disciples of Jesus Christ and leaders in their families, communities, chosen fields, and in building the kingdom of God. As the leadership of BYU Hawaii, our stewardship is to God and to our students, present and future. We work closely with the Board of Trustees, led by prophets, seers, and revelators, to fulfill that stewardship. We do not look left or right, quote unquote, for direction. We look up and seek the will of God through his prophets. Well, and that's a pretty strong argument. If it's the prophet and the apostles that are in on this, like they're wanting this to happen, then that makes sense. So I don't know all the complexity of this story, but you can watch Greg and see what he has to say about it. So anyway, bringing this back full circle, it's very odd that you have this tree planted the same year as David O. McKay is born, who brought about, apparently through a vision of some kind, brought about the BYU Hawaii, brought about BYU Hawaii, as well as the Polynesian Cultural Center, which is affected a lot of people and probably will continue to do so into the future. I don't know if there are other presidents of the church that have been so um, significant to Hawaii as far as their interaction with Hawaii or things that they've done there. I don't know, but even before going into this story, I somewhere in the back of my mind, I always knew that there was a connection between David O. McKay and Hawaii, and I'm not sure that the same can be said of other presidents of the church. Does that make sense? If you know better, let me know. So it's just another thing that seems to correspond. The year, what was it, 1873? Yeah, 1873. What are the chances? The banyan tree, a fig tree, the largest in Hawaii, the oldest in Hawaii. Um, as part of like in this very important place where the old capital or the palace was nearby, the courthouse right there. It's been a historic site, somewhere that people have enjoyed. People, visiting Lahaina. Mindy was talking to me about it, how it was nice to be under the banyan tree. It's just, I don't know. It's just wild. It's just wild. What other things are going to come out of this? Is there even more to this that I don't even know about yet? It was like a miracle I even like thought about this. I almost like I was just like 150 years, who cares? But no, I'm glad that I looked into it because it turns out that there's this connection, the David O. McKay connection. And it solidifies in my mind that none of this was random. It's not arbitrary. And in fact, the exact opposite, that this is a warning. It doesn't matter. There's some that would say that this was like caused by man and secret combinations. And I'm sure that's right. I wouldn't doubt that, honestly. But regardless of the cause, God is over everything, and that would make it even more poignant if we knew that this was not, a natural occurrence. If this was as the result of either secret combinations or hostile nations or whatever, you know, for all their power and what they're able to do, they can't destroy God. They can't destroy his chapels. They can't destroy the banyan tree. In this case, they weren't successful at doing that. Not that that was necessarily the primary target. Um, but you get what I'm saying. Wow. Let's go to the street view really quick. see what it looked like before this happened. Wow, that is cool. I mean, you can tell it provides a lot of shade. Mindy says in that video that she sent that I shared in the last video that it was a lot more high quality. I guess that the quality suffered because it was sent by email or by text, I mean. So looks like they're having some kind of like farmers market type event going on right here. Let's see, let's go back. Sorry, I just want to look at, let's go on this like little trail right here. Oh, it's just, it's amazing looking. It was really cool that, you know, it had like those chickens that were in the roosting on the branches of the tree. Yeah, it looks like some kind of crafts thing. By the way, I've done this kind of thing before, setting up a booth, and it sucks. I hate packing it all up, and I hate setting it up. I hate getting up early, first of all, because almost always you have to wake up early, but then packing it up, setting it up, taking it back down. Look, here, there's a picture of a rooster, just like the rooster that we saw in Mindy's video. It's like the Kellogg's type rooster. Some nice plates and magnets. I'd probably get one of those magnets. Jewelry. What are those, like candles? Yeah, they're candles. That's cool. Looks like there's all these different tropical scents. Okay, anyway. So, yeah, just another thing to bring to your attention. This kind of blew me away. But that's going to be it for this one. So, if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. I bet my girls would like one of these things, like these little octopus or like these star things. Yeah, share the video and I'll talk to you guys later.